Let's drink beer. It makes my mind clear. It takes me away from here. Let's drink beer. And let's drink beer. Pump it up, lift it up, drink it up.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Art of Beer, very special edition. We've got Tom Kerns from Big Island Brewhaus came over to Oahu. He brought some really cool beers that we don't normally get over here. We're going to drink some of them and hang out with Tom. So, well, let's go.
Let's get cracking on the first one. So, what's Daniel opening right now, Tom?
Well, that's our Migoto rice lager. We created this in honor of, the classic Asahi Super Dry, but fresh, a little more bold, and just flat out yummy lager all day. Keep the smile going.
Yes.
Cheers.
Oh. See,
Nailed that.
it's so floral.
Definitely bold.
Yeah. So it's loaded with, to a certain extent, with light beer, but it's loaded with Czech Saaz and German Hallertau hops, and they do shine through. That's one of the things the rice does. It lightens the body, so there's a little more yeast character coming through, and the hops just kind of boom.
We put this in our crushable category.
Oh my God. But I mean, if
We're at the top. Yeah.
it's crazy to say, but like if you've had sake and you really like sake, it has some of those same, like when you get really good sake and it's really crisp and clean, but then you get all these like really nuanced like flavors that it's like floral and sweet and fruity, but not in a like overabundant, or it's just subtleties all over the place. But it's like you can just you can keep drinking it really quick.
Well, that's the beauty of a lighter beer, is that it allows you to taste more, really. You're not getting hit over the head with anything. It's all there to be seen.
Oh yeah, and you have this with like sashimi, where it's you almost get that natural sweetness out of the fish. That is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Migoto, it took us a while to come up with a name. You gotta come up with a cool name, and it means awesome, superb, tremendous. And we kept saying, wow, this is really good, this is great, what are we gonna call it? And so
Fell right into place,
it
right?
fell right into place.
Is there a specific type of rice you use with this, or is...
Well, we're playing with this. It's our first attempt, and we actually used Calrose. It's California, just sushi rice.
Yeah.
And we cooked it in our kitchen and at the brewery, and we'll see how that goes. It's about 20% of the sugars in the beer. So next time we'll try a couple other ideas, but we're gonna play with it and see what happens.
So speaking of the brewery, you guys are in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places in the world. You're in Waimea on the Big Island. Tell us about the brewery, where you're located, kind of.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm just really excited to bring the beers here since we're not there. We're bringing a little of the Big Island Brewhaus right here to you. I ended up, the journey, I should say, came from meeting my wife on Maui, and she lived over there. And this is back in 1997, and I was just opening Fish and Game Brewing Company. Literally, had just moved over, and the ball was rolling, but things were up in the air. And met her Halloween night in Lahaina. Strange things happen. But fast forward a couple years, she moved to Maui to join me and started Fish and Game Brewing Company, and that was a blast. We had a great time there, and eventually we moved on to. It's a long story. So where do we go with it?
No, I mean, Fish and Game turned into, but then that ended up becoming Maui Brewing
Yeah,
Company,
for
right?
sure. So Fish and Game was 98 through 2005, and the new ownership came in with Garrett and Melanie, and
He's a friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
He's been on. So.
Absolutely. And we worked together for 3 years, and so he came in with great new energy, and we evolved from a small brew pub to adding the big production brewery in Lahaina and really focusing on cans as a downstream. And
I'm going to cut you off real fast. We got to take a little bit of a quick commercial break. Let our viewers at home go grab a beer. We'll come right back and talk more about that origin story of Big Island Brewhouse with Tom Kerns.
Bringing you what matters. Viewers can receive the Star Advertiser digital full access subscription for just $9.95 per month. Go to staradvertiser.com and click on subscribe. Use the code AHITHING.
Welcome back. We're back with Tom Kerns from Big Island Brewhouse, and we're going to talk about moving from Maui to the Big Island where we are now. And I think we should do it with some beer. Let's pop open some of that Paniolo.
Paniolo Pale, let's go.
yeah, so Paniolo Pale Ale was our first beer that we ever brewed at Big Island Brewhouse. And it's a classic American strong pale ale. This particular version, we've been working on a couple new techniques with dry hopping, biotransformation going on. So basically we're adding the hops real early in the fermentation. And what happens is the yeast and the hops come together and transform flavors. Boom.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
And so you'll take a couple hops that you might be real familiar with, and when you combine them early in the fermentation with specific yeasts, you can get different characters that you're really surprised about. So it's a whole new learning experience.
What's great about this is, as a pale, it's like you get all those hop characteristics. It's not bitter at all. It's got enough, right? It's going to balance that malt character, but it's still light, so drinkable. You get like berry characteristics, light fruit, a little kind of piney resin, but it's not.
Yeah, the intention, really it is dry and bitter to a certain extent, but the bitterness brings you back, and I want it to be pleasant.
Yeah.
I want it to linger a little bit and be pleasant and bring you back.
So tell us about, when we left for break, you were talking about how you're still on Maui. Maui Brewing Company came in, and you were working with Maui Brewing Company. And how did you go from there to opening your own brewery in Waimea on the Big Island?
Yeah, it's really interesting to think back on my mindset then, because I was having a blast. We were crushing it with the canning line, and just the business was taking off, great people to work with. But my wife and I really wanted to live on the Big Island, and I've always kind of thought, you want to be where you want to be and do what you want to do. Absolutely. And so we brought that to come to fruition, and we ended up moving over there. We purchased an existing Mexican restaurant with the promise of adding a brewery in back on the same property. And it took us a few years of selling tacos and margaritas to get the brewery built. And so we opened the restaurant in 2008, or took it over. And 2011, March 4th, was our first service of beer.
And how was that? I mean, so if people haven't been to Waimea, I mean, it's up, it's elevated. You guys are the highest elevated brewery in the state, right? It's beautiful. I mean, it's rolling hills, it's green, you're on the slopes. But it is a little remote, right? It's a little removed.
Well, I like to joke with people, we live 20 minutes from Hawaii. Just drive down to Kauai.
Yeah, totally different, right?
The thing that, I love the sun, love getting in the water, but it is nice to drive up country and
cool off,
and open the window and have to have a blanket on, that kind of thing.
Clouds roll in, mist roll in. It's my favorite place in the state, like hands down. I love that area.
Awesome.
But what were the challenges of opening a brewery up there? I mean, like, it's not. Do you have a sewer system up there?
That's a good question. So we don't have a sewer system. So I've had to learn how to become a wastewater treatment plant manager. We have a small little wastewater treatment plant that services the property. And that's been a learning curve, just like brewing.
Yeah.
And it's been fun though, to get it right and to learn what it takes to keep that flowing. Because if you don't have a downstream in any direction, it's gonna, be a problem.
all aspects of the business, right? You got to learn everything.
You gotta be a jack of all trades, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
not like someone like always near that you can call to fix something, right? Like you kind of got to be able to do everything up there.
It's true. Yeah. And that's part of the fun is just being self-reliant and forging your own path. And here's to your own path.
Well,
Yeah, I think you guys have forged.
You forged a pretty good path.
This is an amazing one.
So we're gonna step out for a second, but when we come back, we're gonna go with some of these beers that you forged that path with, some of the things, your flagship beers, and we'll give them a taste and talk about it. We'll be right back.
Windows Hawaii. Windows are not only designed to beautify your home, but also to make your home more secure, energy efficient, and virtually noise-proof. Contact Mario now for your free estimate in-home. For all your money needs, Hawaiian Financial Federal Credit Union is here for you. Visit hificu.com.
Welcome back, guys. We're so glad to have you back, and we're so excited to have Mr. Tom Kerns here from Big Island Brewhaus, and he's brought us some amazing beers over from the Waimea on the Big Island, and some of these we don't normally get here on Oahu, so we're super stoked. Definitely not in bottles. Sometimes they're going to be kegs. So what should we be cracking open next? Tell us about this one.
You want to check out the Djibouti Kava?
Yes.
I think
So,
we
yeah,
should.
so this is a goza style, but it's a fruited goza, so it's got a little salinity and a light
Pretty color.
lactic fermentation to give it some sourness, a bit tart on the finish. And then Djibouti Kava fruit, which is also known as the Brazilian grape, but it's got a real thick plum-like skin, which gives you tannins and a purple color.
Yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, for someone who's never seen or heard of a Djibouti Kava, it's like the alien fruit,
It's
right?
a Dr. Seuss tree,
Yes, it's
you know?
totally Dr. Seuss Avatar, right? Like, the fruit grows off of the trunk and the branches. It's not like
Yeah.
normally fruit grows off of the
Doesn't hang
stems
from
and
the
leaves.
tree.
It's like growing. It's kind of like figs. Well, them kind
Yeah,
of
you take a look at the tree, it looks like, what's wrong with that tree?
Right.
There's something growing on it, and it's the fruit.
Yeah, it's like it's got blisters growing off
Yeah,
of
these
it. and
purple
they're-
blisters.
Yeah. And how do you like?
Super juicy. They're like a plum, really. I think is the closest fruit I know of. But the skin has a real interesting red wine-like tannin to it, and it's just great. I first tasted it in different meads from friends that made mead, with it, and I just thought it'd be great in beer. And so we've done a number of different beers with it, and gravitated towards sour, and then now it goes a.
And how do you guys take? Do you guys just pick all the fruit off and just like mash it, or how does?
Yeah, so farmers, we typically will get it from a couple different farmers that we work with, and it gets cleaned, and then we macerate it with a mixer, and we actually throw it right into the beginning of the fermentation. We've done a lot of different things with it, and we've found that you get the most flavor as well as a complete fermentation if you put it right in there with everything else.
Yeah, it's got like this.
It's got a small funk to it. Almost
Yeah, and it's
but
hard-
It's like, I don't even know if funk's that
Like grape.
word.
It's
just,
kind of grape.
It's definitely got a grape, especially
Yeah.
the longer the finish kind of lingers, almost
Yeah.
like a wine, white
Yeah,
wine.
it's definitely grapey.
Tart, but dry, but fruity. It's
It's like fruity, but then you still salivate. Like
Yeah, exactly.
It's very delicious.
Yeah, it's fruity but dry and
Yeah.
sour, and so it
Yeah.
does bring you back. It's not sweet. It finishes dry. It's about 2.0 Play-Doh, so it's pretty light.
so you guys work with a lot of local farmers on various.
We
Products,
do,
right?
and the idea is that we really want to enhance the beer with what we can find locally. My mantra in beer is to make something fresh, original, but also have roots in tradition and history, which really does embrace things around you that enhance the flavor, or for other reasons such as maybe adding extended shelf life, like hops. That's where hops comes from, and wow, they taste great too.
Yeah, and you guys have a lot of. I mean, big on the Big Island, especially where you guys are located. There's like, either way you go down the hill, there's fruit and
Yeah,
things you
fruit, coffee, cacao, spices.
honey, pink peppercorns, neighbors oranges. I'm looking at the line here. There's a whole bunch of
line
stuff.
up right here.
Hawaii Island's got so many different things.
Hawaii Island is, everywhere you turn, there's some different piece of
and
agriculture.
One
that
of
you
our
can use.
goals with it is just what you said, agriculture, is to bring it to the table. You know, we try to create beers that are great with food.
Yeah.
For the most part, there aren't any that I can think of that, you know, that don't pair well. You know, it just, that's the goal. And so something with a little bitterness or a little sour edge is going to cut through a lot of food. And the carbonation, you know, in beer is food's best friend. You know, cleanses the palate. And
Yeah, this beer is so cool, and it's one I think every once in a while you'll find kegs of it on Oahu, but it's you know, it comes in and goes out, and you don't find it very often. So it's kind of it's like an awesome treat to be able to get some of this.
well, thank you. Yeah, we try to brew it when we have the fruit.
Yeah.
And you know, so it does go through an ebb and flow. It's a seasonal that comes and goes. And
Well, we're gonna take a quick break, refresh our glasses, and dive into more Big Island Brewhouse with Tom Kerns.
Bring home paradise in a can with Lanikai Brewing Company. Island-inspired craft beers and spirits made locally in Kailua. Find our products on every island or swing by our tap rooms on Oahu. At Aloha Kia, you know a guy. Visit us at our 7 dealerships statewide. Purchase a brand new Kia using Aloha Kia Express. Purchase at alohakia.com.
Welcome back to the Art of Beer. We're with Tom Kerns from Big Island Brewhouse. I think we're going to jump into some Golden Sabbath, which is one of their core beers. These are the beers you see a little bit more frequently around town, at least on island.
Oh, yeah.
They're pretty good. That's the. How was the supposed to go there last?
It happens.
oh, you're breaking the rules.
So I remember the first time I went to Big Island Brewhouse, it was literally like a trip to Mecca for me. I was living on Kauai at the time. One of your former workers, Cisco, was working for me.
Sure.
And so I had to take 2 flights to go to the Kona Beer Festival. My wife and I came over. I think I spent $500 to go to your brewery because we had to stay the next night because the beer festival was going on. We couldn't drive up there on the same day. Drove up there, and like literally every single person we got there right like 5 minutes before you opened. Everyone that was in the building for the whole time we were there was at the brew festival the day before. You know, people from San Diego, all over the world, kind of coming to see you.
That's how that works.
But I'm
Every
guessing
weekend.
that's not the normal. It's like you guys seem to be like a little pillar in that community. Like the times I've gone subsequently, it seems like a lot more locals and a lot more of your regulars.
Well, it's a good mix. We're right on the main road, so, you know, people just driving by or tourists, it's easy to find. But it is a local community gathering place. That's what we set out to create, was a place for family and friends that can get together and, of course, share craft beer, but it's all about the food, camaraderie, and live music. We're a big supporter of live music, and I'm a musician as well, and it's just fun to share the Aloha and do all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's cheers this.
Cheers.
Yes.
So Golden Sabbath is
Tell us about Golden Sabbath.
Yeah, so it's a Belgian-style abbey in the vein of Chimay, Duvel, Orval. It's not really exactly any one of those, but different elements from, especially like Duvel, I would say maybe the closest. However, we don't use candy sugar as a substitute for malt. We use honey, local honey instead. And so you do get a little candy, honey character, a little silkiness in the palate. And the name Sabbath, you know, we all love the band, right? But really what it comes from is that these types of beers in Belgium are often reserved for Sunday, you know, and you know, Sunday afternoon you crack a strong Abbey-style ale and you enjoy the Sabbath.
Yeah.
remember the Sabbath and keep it holy.
Yes, absolutely.
No, what's great about this is like on the nose, it's honey. Like you smell the honey, but it's on the palate, it's dry, it's crisp. You taste the honey, but it's not sweet. You know, and that's the beauty of it. Like all your senses are going honey, 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 honey. And you're getting all this, but then your palate's dry and it's crisp, and there's so much more going on, but you're not like overly sweet.
You're getting the floral notes and like those other parts of the honey that aren't the sugar.
You don't have the sugar. Yeah, exactly. And it's so enjoyable because it's like you're getting all of that, but then you never want something that's super cloying, like overly sweet, and then you're not getting that in this, and it's like really awesome. And it's something like, you just open it up on a Sunday and relax.
I mean, this beer for me, it just begs for seafood, like lobster. It's incredible, but it's also good with a little dessert too,
Or just
or a Sunday afternoon.
just by itself, sitting on your patio listening to live music.
During pandemic, there was restaurants were doing to go, right, and they were selling off their stocks of beer because they knew they couldn't do it. And I found a restaurant that was selling off Golden Sabbaths for like $5 each. I think I bought 13 of them. I was like, what do you have?
Well, Sunday's coming up.
I'm gonna have a Sunday every day of the week.
Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I didn't have to go to work. I mean, I was just, but I knew they had them for $5 each. I was just like, well, how many do you have? 13. I was like, I'll take them all.
Well, there is a universal love for a stronger golden beer.
Oh yeah.
You know, for a lot of beer drinkers, and and craft beer drinkers. Yeah, we are all promiscuous, but that kind of element is a big one.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of beer drinkers look, and the lighter the color, they expect to have lighter the body. They don't necessarily, but I love getting a lighter colored beer and having
All
some
those
body and
flavors.
everything to it, big flavor.
Absolutely.
So-
Hey, I want to thank you guys for joining us on here on the television version. We're going to go and talk a little bit more with Tom Kerns from Big Island Brewhouse on the extended YouTube version. So join us at The Art of Beer on YouTube, and we'll see you guys over there.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, extended edition time. We're back with The Art of Beer with Tom Kerns from Big Island Brewhouse. And let's keep going.
The glass is empty. What are we opening?
What'll it be?
Overboard.
Let's do it.
It's like everybody's favorite IPA. It's like,
Can't argue with that.
It's a classic. I mean, great thing about this, it's your classic American IPA, but it's a little modern. It's not like, you still got a little malt, you got bitterness, you got the like classic citrus piney, but it's balanced.
And it comes in a 22-ounce bottle.
Yeah, it's just balanced. Cheers to that. Yep. What's weird is like nowadays, and I find myself in the shop and some of our employees, like we're looking for IPAs like this. We talked about this before where there's like a zillion choices in IPA, right? And there's like everything. You got the hazies and there's a whole range of hazies, all the lactose, blah, 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 blah. But a lot of us tend to go back like, I just want an IPA. And I kind of want an IPA that has a little bit of sweetness, malt sweetness, not too much. I want a little bit of resin, a little bit of pine, a hop character, and then a little like lingering dry bitterness. And what's crazy,
it's an evolution.
they're hard to find.
When I first started brewing, they didn't even call them IPAs. They were just, pale ales, and eventually, marketing came. There was always an IPA, but point is that it evolves. And what you're talking about is true. I mean, modern day we have the hazies, and then maybe some West Coast, but this is kind of in between.
Yeah.
So it's a little juicy. There's a little silkiness in the body, but there's a bitterness that finishes, brings you back, but it gives it an edge.
It's drinkable. Like
Yeah.
it's not so bitter where you're just kind of like cat tongue at the end.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a pine tree in my mouth.
No.
No. Bittered out.
But what's crazy to me is that they're so hard to find. Like there's Breakside IPA or Breakside Wanderlust are kind of in the same like wheelhouse
Yeah,
to me.
very much so.
And then I'm like, I struggle after that.
Two-Hearted Ale.
Too hard yeah. I mean,
Yeah, in fact, those two, I would say, a very similar profile. There's a little silkiness, a little malt. We have a touch of Munich malt, some light caramel, but it's mostly two-row.
yeah. It's just like the evolution is kind of changing. It's great because there's like variety everywhere. But I think as we go back, sometimes you just want to go back to like, I want something classic.
Yeah, and it's you talk about being promiscuous, and we're always trying new beers because everyone's always making new beers, and then every once in a while you go back to the thing and you're like, oh yeah, that's such a good beer. like Dean from Sierra Nevada was on, and the same thing. Like I don't always reach for Sierra Nevada, but every time I get one in a glass, I'm like, oh,
You're happy.
Yeah, stoked.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
this is one of those beers where you just.
So what are some of the beers that influenced you in your life and in your beer lifetime? Like, what are some of the ones that like really like caught your eye or made you change your mind on things growing up? Or
Yeah, good question. Well, beer epiphanies. I call that.
Exactly.
You know, my first one that I can really think of is Lowenbrau in Munich. Out of a can. It was 1984. I was in the Army, and opened a can and took a sip, and I'm like, whoa! Like this malt character just exploded in my mouth, and I've been pursuing it ever since. Another one is Sierra Nevada. I mean, Pale Ale. I remember tasting that for the first time in the late '80s, and just wrapping my head around American hops, and I didn't know what it was. I mean,
it's funny how many people we talked to that Sierra Nevada Pale Ale
that was the gateway beer.
Was a beer epiphany for them. I mean, definitely for me, I had one with that too. But
same thing where like everybody was like, I didn't know what to do with this beer. I didn't know what it was. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I supposed to like this?
But really, the first one after that for me was Hammerhead Ale from McMenamin's, and that was an amber IPA to use modern terms, and still is. And that really set me on the road to home brewing. And then I eventually got a job with the company and worked with them for a few years in Oregon. And that's where I got my start. But that beer just exploded with Cascade hops. Real simple, just one type of crystal malt and nothing but Cascade hops, and a lot of them.
Yeah. And you've also been like a champion or like a fan of like classics. Like you talk about, a lot of these things they're classic styles that sometimes you tweak and you put different spins on them, but you've always been sort of, I think that's why a lot of people like love the brewery, because you do classic things so well. When we talk about like, and when we talk like, there's certain classic beers that you just like absolutely love, right? Where it's like, they're just pivotal, and then you take them and do little things with them.
Yeah, I like to keep my eye on the roots and history of brewing, but at the same time, I'm from Generation X, and we came out with disco and punk and heavy metal all at the same time. So it's kind of like it has roots, but I mean it all comes from somewhere. But that creativity, you want to express yourself.
Yeah, we can drop D-tune this one and make it a little different.
Art, music, beer, food, that's the amazing thing with it's all intertwined.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna open this guy. Is this the tall dark Mandarin?
Oh yeah, exciting.
Because this one's fun, and we don't. So tell us about tall dark Mandarin, because that's not one we see very often, and I definitely want to show.
Well, do you know around Christmas time the Terry chocolates from England, the chocolate orange candies?
Yes.
Break them and they section out, and so that really is the inspiration for this beer. Friend of mine who owned a bike shop right next to the brewery in Waimea, had a beautiful mandarin tree. And what am I going to do with all these oranges? And I was like, well, let's make a beer. And I said, yeah, let's do it with chocolate as well. And so that was the second year that we were open, so 2012. So we've been doing it once a year ever since. And
so Belgian of you, like that. Oh God, exactly what you said, candied orange. I mean, that goes back to sort of your love of Belgian beers and respect for that kind of brewing culture where you're taking what's around you and what's in your community and like going, hey, how do I incorporate this into my product?
For sure. We love involving farmers, and I think it's important, to, tie the community together, and the community is contemporary in everything we do, and it's important.
It's so good. It's so good. I'm gonna stop. It's so good.
It's hard to describe, but take and it's hard to describe it this way, but take like an orange creamsicle, right? Like that super orange vanilla characteristic that's in there. Take out all the sweetness, but not in an artificial flavoring way, but then add like chocolate, like dark, bitter chocolate to it. And then that's like sort of the juxtaposition you have here, because when you're smelling it, you get like orange and vanilla. And you taste it, you get the orange and vanilla, but then it's like you get bitter chocolate, and then it just dries out. But there's none of that weird sweetness to it.
Yeah, one of the tricks with this beer is we don't want it too sweet, and so it's not, and it has evolved a bunch. We've done different things. We've used different yeasts, and we've tried to not leave it too sweet, try to approach a dryness, and we're pursuing harmony, really, but we use cacao, not chocolate in the sense of a syrup, and so you do get more of a dry, dark chocolate character.
Yeah, it's bone dry, delicious.
Just absolutely great. I love that orange is all up front. It's from your nose to the first ounce when it hits your lips, and then it rolls into everything else.
So funny stories, we have done some other versions, like I mentioned, where we've used just a huge amount of macerated oranges, and to the point of where, orange oil is antiseptic. And so, when you add yeast, and the yeast doesn't work because the orange oil killed it. So these kind of things can happen, but what we did figure out a way to ferment that beer, and it was a little heavy on the orange, but sometimes you have to go over the edge,
right,
to see where it is.
Come back where it is. So you got to fall down every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so these are available just at the brewery, right?
Yeah, all of them. Right now we have 15 beers on tap, and that changes between 15, 18.
Nice. So that means you need to plan a trip to Waimea to go to Big Island Brewhouse and check it out. We really want to thank Tom Kerns for coming out and hanging out with us, bringing us this awesome lineup. Appreciate you guys for watching. We'll see you next time on The Art of Beer.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Anytime.